Hello. I'm just going to update the Twitter. And here we go. Hello, everybody. My lighting is all weird and I can't figure out why, but that's okay. I just want to give people a second to get here, and then we're going to be talking about Herschel Walker's autobiography. I was really kind of, I'm going to put this on airplane mode. I was really kind of excited to read this because I don't know if you guys have been following the Senate race in Georgia, but there was some drama because Herschel Walker's son, Christian Walker, had this very public blow up. Let me even find the quotes so I can inform everyone correctly. Christian Walker. So he said, I know. So these are the tweets. I found the tweets right here. He said, I know my mom and I would really appreciate it if my father, Herschel Walker, he didn't tag him, stopped lying and making a mockery of us. You're not a family man when you left us to bang a bunch of women, threatened to kill us, and had us move over 6 times in 6 months running from your violence. In Herschel's defense, he was a very good athlete and good running. So if you're going to try to run from him, it's going to be tough. There's no question. And then he goes, I don't care about someone who has had a bad past and takes accountability, but how dare you lie? It's interesting that dare you lie is capitalized, and act as though you're some moral Christian upright man. You've lived a life of destroying other people's lives. How dare you? So that got me thinking, and I'm like, all right, like what's going on with this Herschel Walker? And there was some other, I thought it was in this thread, and I guess I'm wrong. Hold on a second. Because some other point, hold on. God, everything's behind a paywall nowadays. There was some accusation that Herschel Walker had put a gun up to his ex-wife's head, and Christian Walker's mom's head. And I'm like, okay, this is, I mean, really dark, insane. Hold on a second. I'm looking for more of the quotes. Okay, so Christian also had a video, and he said he, meaning his father, Herschel, has 4 kids, 4 different women, wasn't in the house raising one of them. Apparently, so he regards this as a contradiction because Herschel is running on this kind of family values, conservatism, being pro-life, so on and so forth. So when I was looking up the stuff about Herschel Walker holding a gun up to his ex-wife's head, which, I mean, this is crazy stuff, obviously, no pun intended. I found an article from People magazine where he addressed this. So this had come out months ago. This wasn't just recently. Here we go. So in August. So there was an article I'm reading People magazine, and it said the headline is Political Ad Features Herschel Walker's ex-wife describing when he allegedly held a gun to her head. Okay. And the woman says, do you think you know Cindy DeAngelis Grossman? She goes, do you think you know Herschel Walker? Listen to what his ex-wife has to say about him. And she goes, I got into a few choking things with him. A few choking things. Just choking. A few choking things with him. The first time he held the gun to my head, he held the gun to my temple and said he was going to blow my brains out. Now, I don't know. I would think that when you're pointing a gun to someone's head, you don't really need to say you're going to blow their brains out, kind of implied, but what do I know? I've never held a gun to anyone's head or any other part of their body for that matter. Here's the thing, though. Court orders also show she received a protective order in 2005, 3 years after they divorced. What got me down this rabbit hole was in that same article where Herschel was asked about this incident, he says, this is the best part. Walker has said he doesn't remember he doesn't deny them. He said he doesn't remember his threats, though, because he suffers from dissociative identity disorder. He says he has no memory of actions taken by some of the alters, writing that years of therapy helped to integrate the personalities. And he says Walker, now remarried, developed a dozen alter egos to combat the intense bullying he suffered as a child, according to his 2008 book, Breaking Free. So I was like, oh, there's a book. And since the book is like from a while ago, I'm like, this is going to be good because it's before. Oh, I've been working. I'm like, this is going to be good because this is before he thought he was going to have a political career. So there's going to be a lot of, interesting stuff in here. And I did get, just for the record, I did get a signed copy. So this is signed. So one of the things that interested me about this is dissociative identity disorder is the kind of new way, as he acknowledges on like page 1, of referring to multiple personality disorder. Now, multiple personality disorder, we know it from like movies and sitcoms and things like that. I've done a fair amount of reading on it. I'm not an expert. Double check everything I have to say. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a Joe Biden doctor. My understanding was that multiple personality disorder is not really regarded as a thing. The most famous case is the woman Sybil. That was her pseudonym. There was a book about her. There's a movie about her. And she supposedly, I remember this from the book. Well, there's 2 books. There's that one and When Rabbit Howls. And one of them was she got multiple personalities because her mom or grandma used to punish her by giving her like ice cold enemas. Like it was like a lot of like really dark stuff. And the Sybil case, according to my understanding, it was recently demonstrated that it wasn't real. Basically, what had happened was she had a psychologist or psychiatrist, and she was talking about different aspects of her personality. So the doctor would be like, okay, when you're like in that guarded, protective mode with men, let's call that, Joan. How would Joan react? You know what I mean? So it wasn't even at the time supposed to be some literal multiple personalities, so much as we all have different aspects of ourselves. And that was how the psychiatrist was treating her. So when this book said he got it because of intense bullying, right away I had alarm bells go off, because I'm like, no. Because it's so extremely rare and bullying is obviously extremely common, bullying is not going to lead to this. It has to be like, years of extreme abuse, often at the hands of a family member or something like that at a very young age. So just because you're bullied as a kid does not mean it's going to cause this. That sounded crazy to me. So I started reading the book, and I have my notes, and the book's bad. First of all, let me say the book's bad. Let me give you some inside baseball. I know I'm mixing metaphors because he's a football player. When you have a book with 2 ghostwriters, and the book is only 238 pages, this was a difficult project. Like there was some problems going on in writing this book. And the thing is, what happens is if you have like a terrible ghostwriter and they're fired, you're not going to have both names. You're going to have one of them. So behind the scenes, I'm like, all right, something has been going on here. So let me get my notes. As I started reading, I'm like, something's not adding up. Let me figure out what's going on here. On page 5, like it starts off really good. Here's the other thing. A lot of times when you read a book like this, the first chapter will be really exciting. That's what'll get you. Very often that first chapter is so when you're doing a book proposal, like I'm Herschel Walker, right? I get an agent, I get a ghostwriter. That ghostwriter often, if they're going to do a book proposal, will put together a book proposal. Sometimes you don't need a book proposal. Like I'm an agent, I got Herschel, we go make the rounds, Herschel Walker book, what's your offer? Great. Other times you're going to, especially at that age, 2006, I believe it was, he was not at all at the height of his fame. Like he was 2008, excuse me. He was, well past his prime as an athlete. So it's much harder to get a book deal back then. So he probably did have a proposal, I would guess. So that ghostwriter has to write a proposal. table of contents, who the athlete is, and then usually you're going to include a sample chapter. And that sample chapter, usually the first chapter, is very often repurposed to be the first chapter of the book. And what happened is, I would guess that's what happened here. I have no inside information. The first chapter is really, really good, and then it never pays off. But what often happens is the first chapter is written, let's suppose, January 1st, 2007. You get the book deal. You only start writing it September 2007. So the rest of the book, there's going to be a little bit of a discontinuity. So let me find my notes on this hilarity, because there was just so much going on in here. I'm like, okay, this is not adding up. And I thought it was going to be better than it was. Okay. So in the introduction, he says, okay, so this is the page 4, where I'm like, okay, this book's going to be really, really good. He had someone who's supposed to be delivering a car. Okay. He got inside one car, and Natalie, I forget who it is. Natalie called to let me know that a car I'd ordered from men in Philadelphia had arrived. I'd originally asked to be delivered to Robert's house because I was scheduled to be out of town. My trip had come and gone. Still no car had been delivered. 6 days had passed, and this man had not honored our agreement. I'd spent 3 days sitting at home waiting to hear from him, expecting that he'd be honorable enough to at least keep me posted on the status of delivery. And now he doesn't even return my calls. Instead, he calls my friend's house, completely ignoring my message that should now be delivered straight to me. Was that any way to do business? Did this guy think he'd get away with me not keeping his word? I couldn't let him get away with that. So he's flipping out, page 4, that a car that he had bought from somebody was, instead of being delivered directly to him, was being delivered to his friend's house. I'd be annoyed. I don't have a car, but it's annoying. Fine. Okay, let's do that. Then he goes, I could feel my jaw pulsing, my teeth grinding as I sped down Church Road toward Robert's house. I wondered for a moment if my Beretta pistol was still in the glove compartment. I've been a licensed and registered handgun owner for years, had permits to carry a concealed weapon, and had even gone to the FBI Academy during 2 off seasons to do some training. I'd majored in criminal justice, blah, blah. The logical side of me knew that what I was thinking of doing to this man, murdering him for messing up my schedule, wasn't a viable alternative. But another side of me was so angry that all I could think was how satisfying it would feel to step out of the car, pull out the gun, slip off the safety, and squeeze the trigger. So we're on page 4 or 5, and he's already fantasizing about shooting someone who delivered a car slightly late, a week late, to the wrong address. That's within driving distance from him, mind you. Okay. It would be no different from sighting on the targets I'd fired at for years, except for the visceral enjoyment I'd get from seeing the small entry wound and the spray of brain tissue and blood like a 4th of July firework exploding behind him. So not only is he in a fit of rage, which I can excuse, fine, but he's also getting off on the idea of blowing someone's brains out. Great. Here's where it gets even better. Every few seconds, these are his words. Every few seconds, I'd hear a voice telling me, "No, Herschel, that's wrong. You can't shoot a man down in cold blood over this." Over that voice, I'd hear another urging me on, "You've got to take care of business. This guy has done you wrong. You can't let him get away with that. Kill him." Okay, so page 5, he's hearing voices telling him to kill somebody. Over and over, these 2 voices were shouting at me, each one pleading with me. As I made the turn south, blah, 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 I began to pray. As a born-again Christian, I believe God actively and directly influences me to action. I ask that he help stop me from what I was about to do. Lord Jesus, I do not want to kill this man. Please, dear God, somehow show me what it is that I should do. You know, there are certain situations where I can imagine where you're having this internal debate. For example, if someone kidnaps your kid, right? Or and you have an opportunity to do the worst thing to do to them. In your head, you're going to be like, I don't know what to do because this person clearly is evil. You know, there's no, you can't come back from this. This is a despicable, evil human being. At the same time, can I do it? The guy delivered a car 6 days late to like Herschel's friend's house. And he's like, he's so baffled about whether to shoot him in the head that he is praying for advice. My hands were crushing the steering wheel, and when I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror, I saw the veins and sinews in my face and neck standing out like rivers and streams on a relief map. My face, I like how it's rivers and streams. You know, just let's be precise. They were different widths. My face was contorted, and it was difficult for me to believe that the person I saw in that mirror, eyes darting furiously from the mirror to the road ahead, was really me. Do it. Stop it. Do it. You can't do it. So that whole scene sets up the whole book. And I was all stoked to be like, wow, like there's going to be a lot of him fantasizing about shooting people in this book. Like, where's my popcorn? Almost nothing. Why this book is so bad is almost nothing in it is about, despite the subtitle, about dissociative identity disorder, like at all. So besides that wonderful setup, spoiler, he doesn't shoot the guy. Just so we know. And what makes this a very disappointing book is I don't even know what the Heisman Trophy is. I think it's with the guy like this, you know, rushing, but I've heard of it. And if I've heard of it, that's obviously means it's extremely prestigious. And if he's won it, this guy is, and I knew the name Herschel Walker, and I'm not a sports fan at all. This guy is a major, major name in sports. So this would have been a great, I assumed based on the subtitle that this was a sequel or a companion book to his real autobiography, which would have been talking about his sports career. He was in the Olympics. He was an amazing track athlete. He was an amazing football player. He talks about it, but like not at all at any length. Like he's at the Dallas Cowboys. He mentions like 2 people he liked. You do not at all get into their training. You don't get into their strategies. You don't get into like what he's thinking at the Rose Bowl or Cotton Bowl, whichever one he played at, or maybe it was both. I don't remember. The point is, if you're reading this book to get an inside look at one of the great football players of all time, you're not going to get it. Like, he does not get into it really at all, which was a very, very, very lost opportunity. It's not like the book was too long. And at the same time, if you're reading about it to learn about dissociative identity disorder, you're not going to get that either, because he barely talks about it at all as well. So, but it's the kind of thing where it all comes, it's like The Usual Suspects. It all comes together at the end in a very, very funny way. So, ooh, it's disgusting. Just disgusting, disgusting animal. Here he says, so he starts off with a lie, like with an absolute lie. Remember in that article I just cited, he says that he doesn't remember threatening his wife with a gun, right? And the thing with dissociative identity disorder on paper is that supposedly when some of these alters take over your control of the body, the main, whatever the term they use for it, goes away, and you won't have any kind of real memory of what else is going on. And also a big part of dissociative identity disorder is that the whole point of it is that you suffered trauma so severe, your psyche has been splintered in order to not have to remember these past traumas, right? It's obviously very, so there's 2, I'll read you the paragraph, then I'll give my thoughts. He goes, as I said before, this is page 19, I don't have perfect recall of my childhood, but I do know one thing for certain. I was born into a loving, supportive, and God-fearing family. Great. I know with the same certainty that I just drew a breath that I was not physically or verbally abused by any member of my immediate or extended family. I suffered no sexual abuse at the hands of anyone. I state this so emphatically because many dissociative identity disorder sufferers have experienced that particularly horrible brand of trauma. I feel fortunate to have not had to deal with that reality. He's lying. So he's lying because he doesn't know. Like, if there's 2 scenarios. One is he's full of crap about having dissociative identity disorder. 2 is he does have it, but you're not going to get it from bullying. So if you had it from these horrible, horrible things, um, you're not going to really have a good recollection of it. Maybe you're going to remember childhood nightmares or something like that. That's basically how the pattern works. I can understand how it's important. Notice how it's very important for him, and this is really, really unfortunate, because there's still a stigma, even for people who have been sexually assaulted as children, to deny or not talk about it or feel guilty or like, oh my God, this is mean I'm gay or something like that. So for him to feel the need, which he can't prove, if you had suffered these severe traumas and you've got a consequence of these severe traumas, you don't know that you didn't suffer them. So what he describes as suffering, I'll get to that in a second, is just kind of nonsensical. He goes, he talks about growing up poor. Okay, here he goes. He goes, he was very, so here's the other thing which leads me to believe that if he's telling the truth here, he was the victim. uh I hope I'm wrong, of childhood sexual abuse. He goes, he had extreme fear of the dark, which from my understanding is very common with children who've experienced something like this. He goes, having my brothers in the same room with me didn't help ease my anxiety or lessen my fear. I was tortured by what I assume were nightmares, but what I experienced lacked the unreal qualities that typify most bad dreams. At the time and even now, I'm still not sure if I was. So he had these visitors. Let me get it. I didn't take a picture of this. Page 23. You got to have to kind of read between the lines. Okay, yeah. So it goes, at the time and even now, I'm still not sure if I was asleep or awake when these visitors came to me. I know that kids often see a frightening movie or read a scary story and go to bed. Shadows and light transform themselves to shapes. That's not what happened to me. Instead, the images I saw in front of me were as real as any of Hollywood's most expensive visual effects. Most often, I saw animals in my bedroom, wolves mainly. They weren't immediately threatening me, but I could see them sitting and staring at me with baleful, pale yellow eyes. I could feel their hot breath and hear their soft yet menacing panting. I wouldn't cry out because I was afraid that would make them spring into action, and I didn't want to wake anyone in my family. I lay there rigid, fighting back sobs until my energy completely spent. I drifted into a restless sleep. So this is, I think that's kind of a very telling passage. Another thing that's pretty much widely understood from my limited understanding is adults who act in such extremely violent ways are often patterning behavior that they themselves experienced as a kid. So he talks extensively, and it seems quite honestly, about having a loving, supporting family. His parents were both in the home. They both had menial jobs, but really worked hard. He didn't have like shoes. He was close with his siblings. But to have that in contrast with, hey, his claims of dissociative identity disorder, his violent toward his ex-wife, which he doesn't even deny, and then to have these visions of creatures in his bedroom at night, to me, all paint a very or fairly clear picture of what could have happened to him, and hopefully I'm completely wrong. Um, so so he would talk about how the thing that which was really sad. So he was a fat kid, and he was also had a very strong speech impediment, and because of that, the kids picked at him and made fun of him, and that's not fun, and that is unfortunate. And the saddest one is, like, sometimes he'd get like money from, I don't remember, the paper route, who the hell knows. He'd go to other kids. He said, I'd hold out the sweaty coin in the palm of my hand and offer it to them. At first, they'd look at the coin and then at me, suspicion clouding their face. What could this guy be up to? Then I'd ask them, talk to me. So once they understood the nature of the transaction, they take the coin and we talk for a few minutes. So it's really kind of sad. And I knew another kid like that. Actually, myself, growing up, they just try to bribe other kids to talk to them. That is, that's not going to cause dissociative identity disorder, but my heart breaks for him and other kids like that. It's really kind of sad to hear. Okay, we got a question quickly here. Hi, Michael. Looking forward to being the White Pill. Do you know Dave the Distributist? Yes, I was on his show to discuss the new right. It was a superb interview. Okay, let me get back to Herschel, and then we can do super chats after. So that's the thing. Like the rest of the book, it's just like him becoming an athlete. He was a very hard worker. He, starting to play football. This was really kind of interesting to me. So, and I didn't realize that was the case. So this is like the 70s in rural Georgia. He goes, I have vivid memories of being a young child. And I wish he talked about this more because this was really interesting and disturbing. I have vivid memories of being a young child going with my family into Dublin shortly after the ruling. The Klan was marching through the streets, shouting slogans and making threats against us. Even though I'd heard stories, I was still extremely frightened. If I was afraid of the dark, I was equally afraid what the KKK could do to me and my family. So what he discusses, this is, oh my God, he's from Wrightsville, Georgia. One of the so-called games the Klan liked to play in Wrightsville was to follow some of the black kids home from school. Even though most of us rode the bus, we still had to walk considerable distance to get home. Much of the land we had to walk through was farmland where there's still wooded areas. On a number of occasions, Klansmen would stalk a black child and then grab him. There may have been some young girls grabbed, I don't know that for sure, bring him into the woods. Once hidden in the trees, they would carry out a mock lynching, complete with a noose slung over a branch. They would put the noose around the hysterically frightened child's neck, force him often at gunpoint to climb up on a stool. They would kick at the stool and make it wobble all the time, saying the most horrible things to these kids. I was never grabbed, Herschel, but once when I was 6, I was walking with my cousin and one of his friends in the woods. We witnessed firsthand one of these fake lynchings. A young boy, not much older than I was at the time, was standing wide-eyed and sobbing, his pants stained with urine, his thin arms and hands helplessly tugging at the coil of rope around his neck, while all around him a group of white men, were kind of laughing. I believe him because you never hear him talk about racism or the Klan or any of this other stuff. He doesn't invoke race, from my understanding, at all in the campaign trail. So to read about this, is obviously extremely disturbing. Oh God, this is another. This is a really great story. So he tells this story about how. Oh God, I got to get the exact story. This is the most cornball, like, born again Christian crap I've seen in quite some time. So there was this kid who used to be a goof off a football practice. He was a third string running back and never got to play. His team was really good, and they made it all the way to the state championship. The starting running back got hurt in a car accident during the week before the game. The second string guy started the game and he got hurt halfway through the first quarter. A bunch of coaches had come to the game to see the first stringer. They were disappointed they didn't get to see him, but they stuck around. Then they saw the second stringer get hurt, so they stayed. The third stringer ended up playing phenomenally well, and his team won the state championship game. He rushed for 200 yards. All the coaches were impressed. The recruiters came up to the coach and said, "Coach, why didn't you tell us about this guy? We haven't heard a thing about him." The coach said, I haven't ever seen him play like this. He was always just goofing off. So the recruiters asked the kid about his transformation. This is the best part. Ready? "You know what?" the kid answered. "My father was blind. He died last night. This game was the first chance he got to see me play." So I really liked that story. For me, this story is about the power of faith. So he talks about Christ and his religion a lot throughout the book. This is what else was funny. So this is, again, 2008. So he's also talks, he was close friends with Trump. So this is before Trump was like literally Hitler. 2008, he goes, "I wouldn't have continued in pro football if it hadn't been for Mr. Trump." And he calls him Mr. Trump. Trump was running something that was a parallel organization in the NFL. They had a lawsuit, an antitrust lawsuit. They won, but the award was $1. And since it was punitive damages, they tripled it to $3 and they folded. But he talks a lot about Trump in a very positive way in this book. So I thought that was interesting that would have happened many years before Trump launched his political career. Let me see. So he moves to Florida. So we're on to page like 200, and there's like no dissociative disorder. Like he talks about like, oh, I went in this interview and like he went to get his tooth pulled and he refused to take anesthesia. And basically because of his dissociative personality, he could have done it without the pain and blah, blah, blah. So that's like the only incident there. Here he talks. Oh, this is the one. Okay, so he buys a gun. Okay, this is him as an adult. And he goes, I sat at the table with the gun in my hand, turning it over and over, watching it catch and then throw back the light of the fixture above the table. I could smell the gun oil and the dusty cardboard out of the box. I opened the chamber and slid a single round into it. I flipped it back shut and then spun it. I'd seen guys do hundreds of times on television. I sat there some more just thinking. I could hear the voice in my head telling me to go ahead and try it. These are his words. That voice kept telling me this would be the real challenge, the ultimate in competition. At first I resisted, but then I started wondering what it would feel like. I'd beaten most things in my life, my stuttering, my weight problems, people's low expectations of me. I'd won a football track. I'd taken men on and beaten them. What would it be like to beat death? What would it be like to die? I'm going to skip a little bit. He goes, sitting there with that gun in a single round chambered, I was thinking this wouldn't be much different from speeding around on a motorcycle, hurtling down a bobsled track, or taking any other kind of chance. I kind of think it is. I kind of think that, like, if you're riding a motorcycle, you don't have that 1 in 6 chance of dying. And even if you have that chance of the motorcycle spinning out and getting injured, I don't think anything close to 100% of those are fatal. I said all the usual things. You could easily die crossing the street, slipping in the shower, choking a piece of food. Was that how I wanted to go out, or would I want to go out this way on my own terms, by my own hand? I truly didn't want to die, but I was like a junkie looking for that next and better high. Football wasn't very satisfying at all. I was competing the best I could, blah, blah, blah. I reached above me and flipped off the lights. I didn't want Cindy, that's Christian Walker's mom, to come home and find me the first thing she saw. I don't know how long I sat at the table in the hazy blue light of the television. At one point, I must have raised the gun to my temple because I can remember feeling the coldness of the metal and the gentle pressure and my pulse pushing against the thing that could end my life. Before I could really register in my mind what my finger had done and what my ears had heard, the click went off. It was a lot louder than I expected. That's what I remember thinking first. Then I experienced a kind of thrill, an evil kind of thrill that I never experienced before. I didn't feel any relief. Before that sensation wore off, I spun the cylinder again, put the barrel to my mouth this time, tasted the oil and steel on my lips, and pulled the trigger again. This time, the sensations were even more intense. Then Cindy comes home and he runs up and puts the gun away. I can't tell you how many other times I played Russian roulette in total. I don't have perfect recall. Here's the thing. I don't know if he's lying or telling the truth, but if you don't remember how many times you put a gun to your head or your mouth and pull the trigger, we have a problem. The problem is either you did it so many times you lost count, which is really, really bad, or you only did it twice, then you'd remember it, which just means you're not telling the truth. I hope he's not telling the truth. I hope he never did this. I hope no one does this. This is a very, very horrible thing. It's very disturbing to read that anyone would do this. And it was, you're reading this and you're like, holy crap. Obviously playing Russian roulette isn't the smartest, healthiest thing to do. So there goes that. Okay, and this is where it gets good. So the whole time I'm reading this, I'm like, this doesn't sound like multiple personalities. This doesn't sound like this. There's no trauma. Again, being bullied a lot as a kid is upsetting, but it's common. It's not going to cause such severe consequences. It's not going to explain you putting a gun to your wife's head as an adult. Eventually, I did turn to someone else for help. I first met Dr. Jerry Mungdazi, who did the foreword in the early 80s when I was still running track. He was originally from Zimbabwe and was competing internationally while attending college in the US on a track and field scholarship. He got a PhD from University of North Texas, blah, blah, blah. So he stayed in Texas after his graduation, the doctor, and established the Mungadzi Association, which is a nationally known, respected outpatient counseling center specializing in the treatment of individuals suffering from dissociative disorders. And I'm like, okay, let me look this guy up. Oh, it goes, as stated before, in most cases, those who develop dissociative disorders have histories of overwhelming and repetitive trauma during their formative years, typically prior to the age of 10. So what I said earlier, he validates. Dissociation is usually the result of extreme physical, emotional, and or sexual abuse. So we're on the same page, me and Herschel. However, it may also be caused by other types of trauma, such as natural disasters, war, kidnapping, and torture. Same page. So dissociative identity disorder is an extraordinarily creative device that enables the child to maintain some degree of healthy functioning while enduring a situation from which there's seemingly no escape. But here's the thing. If you're getting really bullied horribly in school, which I'm positive he was, that's not even a question. You're a fat kid who has a severe speech impediment. You're going to be treated poorly, especially if you're poor, financially poor. But you had a loving home. He did have an escape. Like, there's many kids who your heart breaks for them, that not only that, I'm sure most people watching this growing up remember that smelly kid in their school, right? And all the other kids made fun of them. They didn't want to talk to him. Usually his name was named Philip. And then as an adult, you realize, as bad as that kid was treated in school, their home life was probably worse. They were probably completely neglected at home. Like, it was I heard stories like this. It was like a nightmare 24/7. So you're mean to them because, like, why are you dirty? Why are you gross? And then you realize it's bad for them at home. He didn't have that. He had brothers and sisters who had a very warm relationship with, even as a kid. They wore each other's clothes because they were poor, but they hung around. He was loved and appreciated. So this stuff does not add up. So I started looking up this Jerry Mungadze, and I would encourage everyone to Google him. It's Mungadze, because he has some interesting ideas about dissociative identity disorder, specifically that it's caused by demons. And the way he can know that the demons are in someone's brain is he takes a picture of a brain divided into sections, and he gives people crayons, and they color in the different sections of the brain in different colors. And when they have demons in them, they will use grays and browns. So this is the guy who is telling Herschel Walker that he has dissociative identity disorder, and all of a sudden the pieces of the puzzle all made sense. So there's nothing of value in this book other than what I've told you, in my opinion. Oh God, what is this on his forearm? What the hell is that? Do you see that? What is that? Anyway, so that is that. I endorse him for the Senate, as I endorse John Fetterman. The faster we can turn the Senate into Arkham Asylum, the better. So if people have some questions, I'll be happy to answer them for a bit, and then we're going to bounce. Oh, hello, Amanda. Yeah, look at my cool chair. I'm a real Texan. Now watch this. Yep, it's a real supervillain chair. Whew. So yeah, the other thing I have to say, I was very disturbed by the people going after Christian Walker. It's like, listen, if this is your dad and you hear him spreading lies about you and you're a kid, you're going to act out. And I get how people are like, look, he's going to be a Republican vote. I want a Republican vote. I want him in the Senate. That's perfectly fair. But the idea that somehow everyone who's in the Senate is somehow a good person and aren't capable of horrific things is frankly absurd. That doesn't mean at all that Warnock is a good person or will be a better vote. It just means he is crazy by his own admission and violent. So that is that. Whew. Does anyone have any other? Oh, and the white pill is done. I'm on page like 197 of the edits. I'm flying through them because it's so much easier to edit than I'm shocked how fast it is to edit. So that was, I finished it last Sunday, which is like the 9th or the 10th, whatever it was. And I'm already 200 pages into the rewrite. It's just nuts. So I hope to get it out by Christmas. We're working on there's a mini trailer. You could see it on this page, on this YouTube channel. I have a full trailer coming out. Hello, Sarah. Thank you very much. And it's really, really going to be worth the wait. I hope so. At least I mean, I'm rereading it, and there's a quote I read today. I'll just read it to you right now. I texted it to my friend. where there's so, when you write the first time, you don't remember what's in there, and they just go. I would talk about the gulags, and they said we are not trying to bring down the mortality rate, and they also said the chief reason for the relatively low rate of suicide is the fact that the prisoners are never alone. So there's lots of really, really disturbing stuff in there. So that is that. I wish there was a John. Is there a John Fetterman book? Is there a John Fetterman book? It's not going to be as good. The other thing with the book is written in a very conversational style, so it's a very easy read, but you're not going to get anything out of it. And it's no, there is. It doesn't look like there is. They usually put one out though before this has become such a thing. Nope, it's not a thing. Okay. Looking good, my guy. No question. Just sending love, brother. You're looking good yourself. Thank you, Slosh. What is? You people really know how to pick the good profile pics. Yeah. Did I miss one? I think I missed one. I think I did. Hold on. Where is it? Demons/jinns are part of most cultures. Whether real or hallucinated, his paradigm could bring that into his nightmares. Subtext or reality, plenty of trauma. Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think that's very reasonable. Looking forward to White Pill and Fetterman Walker debates, hopefully. I really want Fetterman to win. First of all, if the choice is between someone who's like a Romney, and there's absolutely no evidence that Oz is going to be anywhere, I think, other than a Romney, and a senator who might literally die on the floor of the Senate any moment, who will not be able to get through one speech on the Senate, who is literally a shaved Chewbacca, it's not much of a hard choice for me. Congratulations on finishing the White Pill. Very much looking forward to this book. Any plans for the Formula One race in Austin? No, but I think a couple of my buddies are going to it. Will you write the Fetterman book after the White Pill? What would the Fetterman book be called? I don't know. I don't think that there would be a God. It's really funny that did you see his wife, Fetterman's wife, like tried to get the reporter not fired, but in trouble for like interviewing him and asking him very germane questions about his health that people are concerned about. They're really losing control of the Mike. Thank you. Thanks, Miss Curry, Mrs. Curry. Yeah. So yeah. By the way, I am going to be on the Blaze for election night live coverage. And since I am not a Blaze employee and I am not getting paid, it's going to be a lot of fun, I promise. Michael, honest question. Do you think Marxism and its influence is more popular with the masses today than when Marx was alive or when the Soviet Union was founded? I don't have particular insight onto Russia today. The masses. No. It really doesn't. I promise. And that's even even if you're going to count wokeism as a form of Marxism, it's not. It was so popular in the 30s. Like I discussed this in the White Pill. Ooh, Unfettered. That's a good one. That's My Mind Unfettered. This guy should have written this book. If you shouldn't have written this book, if he's going to politics. Well, been there, but geez, keep it a secret. I don't think I have been there. I have played roulette, so technically, since I was born in the Soviet Union, that might make it Russian roulette, but not really. I don't think I really can't say I've really been there. So yeah. What am I reading now? I'm reading Gorbachev's memoirs and a book by Horseman. Horseman is the demon who created or popularized at least public education in America. And thankfully, the Horseman book isn't as evil as I had expected it to be. All right. We have that's all I wanted to discuss with the book. We have a great episode of You're Welcome queued up. When's it dropping? In like an hour? It is dropping in, where did I put it? I don't remember when I set it up. Hold on a second. At 8:30 Eastern, so that's in 45 minutes, and it's me and IFBB pro bodybuilder Antoine Vaillant. I had lost all my gym motivation, so I had him on to talk about the sport and what it's like, at that level. So it was a really kind of fun episode and a little out of the norm for me. Have you ever met Camille Paglia? She is like my number one. I don't want to, role model is the right word. I met her briefly. She did a book signing in Manhattan. I went to attend and I got to ask her questions. That was a lot of fun. Kurt Schlichter just put out a new book again. Yeah, he was on the show to promote it. If you look at the links at my YouTube channel, I think it came out July 12th, if I'm not mistaken, because that was my birthday. So yeah. So that is. Whew. Okay. Hope this was fun for you guys. I am gonna go back to doing some work, and make sure to vote Walker in Georgia and Fetterman in Pennsylvania. Thank you and good night.